Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of our class. I hope so far things are going well for you. Every week I'll record a little bit about what we're going to do and try to provide an explanation. I'm recording on a Thursday. So on Thursdays, a lot of times I'm home grading your work. And so that's why I have a t-shirt. You can't see it all, but it says, "You can do hard things." I got that for my undergrads, but it's a good null message to send out. No, it wouldn't be null. Implicit message that I'm trying to send out to my students that they can be resilient and do hard things. So that's important for me. So today, let's talk about week 3. I just wanted to say so far, when I record this, I have graded your week 1, and papers are looking good. Writing's looking very professional. I think one of the hardest parts is just make sure that you are hitting that application and synthesis level of writing. When I taught little kids, and I wanted to teach them the difference between a summary and a synthesis, one thing that I would do a lot is I would bring in a cake mix. And I said, if I wanted to make a cake, I would have a big bowl. And in my bowl, I'd put the cake mix and the eggs and the oil and all the different things. If I just put those ingredients in a big bowl, that's like a summary. I have all the different items in a bowl, but they're still separate. When I cook the cake, I could make a cake, I could make cupcakes, I might add something, chocolate chip to my cakes, I might add other things to those ingredients to create something new. That's a synthesis. So at the doctoral level, we are really concentrating on a synthesis level, the ability for you to be able to look at multiple sources of data, synthesize all of that together. So what are we going to do this week? So week 1, we had an introduction to curriculum and instruction where we really just looked at the different types of curriculum, the null, explicit, implicit, extracurricular. We then looked at approaches, behavior, humanistic, managerial. So that's what we did in week 1. In week 2, we talked about the philosophy of education. And so we just kind of reviewed those philosophies of education. And we really wanted to look at how does someone's philosophy of education impact the curriculum? All of you posted the video of your teaching. A video that related to a specific philosophy of education. And then you did a curriculum brief that kind of where you looked at curriculum and talked about the philosophical foundations and the theoretical base of that. That leads us to week 3. Now you may say, when are we going to get to actual analyzing curriculum? We are in week 4, but the first 3 weeks we have to establish some foundations. And so this week, we're going to look at the historical foundations of curriculum policy. And so for this week, I'm going to start with the aim. So let's see what my aim is for you to learn. We want you to identify and describe major historical movements and figures that have shaped the curriculum development in the United States and globally. Analyze how society, politics, cultural context shape curriculum. Right now, we're in a time where political decisions really impact curriculum big time, a lot. You can just Google educational changes in the last 2 years and you're going to see that. Compare and contrast key educational philosophies and curriculum models and kind of look at the eras in our history, I should say. Some eras in our curriculum and our history have been more essentialism, some more progressivism. So different eras in our history lend itself to more philosophical or had more of a certain philosophical lens to it. And then we're going to evaluate the enduring impact of historical curriculum on current trends and apply historical insights to critique contemporary curriculum, because history does impact our curriculum. The learn, you have 2 things you're going to read. This week for your reading, you're going to read a book. I'm sorry, you're going to read chapter 3 of your textbook. So you're going to read chapter 3, and that's called Historical Foundations of Education. Then you have one article. This article is called Faith-Based Institutions and Institutional Mission. And I thought this was a really interesting article. We are at Southeastern as a faith-based institution because it talks about the impact that faith-based universities have had on the United States, but it also talks about where we can improve. And so be interested in looking at that. And then you have some videos to watch. And these are all interesting videos. If you like these, you can go online and see a lot, but you're gonna watch a short video about the history of American education in the 17 to 1890s. I have this one is really interesting. Why did we create public schools? It talks about why did we create them? Are some of those reasons still around, or are some of those reasons not around anymore? And I think when you watch this video, you're going to see how policy in our country has changed based on why we created schools. There's a short video about kind of American history. It talks about the old Diluter Satan Act. That was one of the first laws in the United States, which mandated to have public schools. And we wanted to do that so we could teach kids to read the Bible. So because that old Satan is a deluder and he wants to trick us, and so we want to know how to read. And that was one of the first laws. So it's really interesting how much Christianity was a part of those original art schools and when America first was a country. And then lastly, the Bible and America's first schools. You're going to watch that video and see that the Bible was actually one of the first textbooks in American schools and public schools, not private schools, public schools. Then you have 2 assignments. I think you'll be happy they're a little bit different this week. So the first one is you are going to think about, after watching the videos, I want you to do a discussion post after watching the videos and reading the information. The question is, how did religious values shape the early American curriculum? What has been lost or gained through secularization? If we now have more of a secular educational curriculum, is that good or is it bad? Is it both? Can a curriculum be research-based and theologically grounded in today's context? You need to think about that. Can it? If so, how? You need to think about that. So that's your first assignment. Remember, your first discussion post is always due on Saturday, and your response is due on Tuesday. Okay? And then your assignment for this week, kind of the big assignment. You're going to create an infograph. I've done an infograph in a couple of my classes, but I'm trying to do more infographics because I think it's a great way for educators to share information without writing a paper. And I think it's a way to synthesize information because we're having to visually represent it. So I want you to think about 2 or 3, and you're no points taken off if you do 2 or 3 curriculum trends in your school, in your district, in your state, or your country. A lot of you, we have people in different countries. That's fine too. And for me, I'm a reading person. So really the science of reading is huge right now. That has been just, I cannot tell you how much that has impacted me and how I teach and how we develop classes. I'm the program director for a reading program. So I would say the science of reading is huge. And then probably a part of that is structured literacy, explicit, systematic structured literacy and all the different programs, Wilson, Orton Gillingham, UFly, that are kind of a product of the science of reading. So think about 2 curriculums. I want you to think about the historical or philosophical foundations that inform these. So the science of reading, and in particular structured reading, definitely has when I think about philosophy, it's definitely more of a traditional essentialism, and it's definitely behaviorism, because there's a explicit specific within goals. So that's for what I'm doing, I would say. Some key policy influences. There's tons of in Florida, there is legislation that states that we have to have the science of reading in schools. And it also states that universities have to train teachers in the science of reading. So you would name some of those policies for whatever you pick. I want some kind of visual elements, timelines, flow charts, diagrams, icons. I don't know. I don't care. Be creative. Then you'll have a short narrative, maybe just 100 words, 150, describing this. So the point of this infographic is for you to create a visual that shows a couple of curriculum initiatives, and they might be related, or maybe they're not related. You could contrast two different things if you wanted to. You're going to describe the historical and philosophical foundations of those curriculum trends. What are some key policy that is important to those trends? And then visually represent that, and then write a short narrative. Again, I'm gonna go to the rubric. And so look at that. And it says, for some reason it's not showing. So let me see if I can show it. Okay. So in your infographic, did you creatively identify 2 or 3 relevant curriculum trends that reflect local or regional practices wherever you're at? Do you integrate historical context, philosophical context? The science of reading, it has some history. I mean, a lot of you have lived through this. I've lived through it. You know, in the 80s, we kind of had this balanced literacy approach, a whole language approach, and then kids aren't reading, and we had to change things. So if you've been in education, you've seen these historical changes. Did you integrate policy integration? Did you talk about maybe state frameworks or district mandates or actual state policy? Did you use resources? So this one, you know, you may have some scholarly resources, but you also may have specific links to state educational offices and so forth. So we need 2 or 3 credible sources. And then lastly, is the infographic engaging, organized? Does it communicate the ideas? And then do you have a succinct, insightful understanding of the main points of your infographic? So you get a chance to kind of look at things in a different way instead of only writing a paper, which I hope you'll like. So that is week 3. If you have any questions, let me know. Don't forget, on Thursdays, I have office hours between 6 and 7. So if you want to do that, congratulations on the work. And I know you guys are going to finish well. When I was a principal, I used to tell my staff all the time, they got sick of this, relentless forward progress. So continue to make that relentless forward progress in all that you do. Have a wonderful day.